Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is Interview with an Air Elemental. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, you can certainly do so through Patreon. When you join, you get access to a number of things, including chats and direct messaging functions to me, always answering questions and having good little discussions. If that's something of interest to you, just go down to the description section and you'll find a link to Patreon. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like a lesson to learn how to astral project or just to increase your ability level, be glad to work with you. I work with folks now all over the world, and it's a lot of fun. I think they learned some stuff, and I know I learned a little bit of stuff too along the way. If that's something that is of interest to you, just go down to the description. There's an email there. Just go ahead and send me an email and ask for more information. Okay. Real briefly, before I get into it, just want to let you know this past week has been a rough week for me. I haven't felt well, and that translated into insomnia for me. So, there was a 4-day jag there where a complete 4 days, I only had 2 hours total sleep. Luckily, I used what little time I had there to gather some energy in some of the ways that I've discussed in the past, or you can use astral projection to gather energy. So I was able to function and be relatively normal, even though I went without sleep for 4 days, essentially. This is one of the rare periods of time when I was able to actually project. So I hope you'll enjoy this. And if you will, just kind of keep me in your thoughts and project sleepy thoughts at me. I'd appreciate it. Okay, let's get into this. Now, everybody liked the last interview I did with the succubus. So I kind of got the idea of doing an interview with an air elemental. Real briefly, for anyone who's not familiar with that term, back in the Middle Ages, the reality was considered to be a mixture of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Let's call ether empty space because I don't want to get into a more detailed explanation of it. Anyway, our ancestors believed that all of the world was made up of those elements or some mixture thereof. There's also been a long and persistent occult belief that these elements have essentially intelligences that inhabit them and participate with them. And in some cases, they're called elementals, earth, air, fire, water, and ether. When I went into the hurricane recently, I told you guys that I had a brief conversation with a air elemental that was having a heck of a time flying around in that hurricane. And so I got the idea that why not start there and see if we can get some information. I really couldn't. It was almost like he had ADHD, the elemental, so I wasn't really able to get much of a conversation. So I was hoping that in calmer air that I'd be able to get a little bit more information. So what I did is I ascended high into the breezy sky looking to find an air elemental. Hovering high above the earth, I sent out a call for an air elemental. And keep in mind, this is telepathic, of course. All this conversation here, as in most of these conversations that I have in the astral, are telepathic in nature. The images and the thoughts come to me, and then I translate them the best way I know how into English. I mean, these things aren't talking using an American accent in English. These are concepts and thoughts that come to me, and then I then translate them. It really didn't take too long, and I began to see a shimmer in the space in front of me. And then the air seemed to thicken and become more tangible. Then I felt a presence, very unlike the types of presences I felt before. It certainly wasn't demonic, and it wasn't a human entity. It was something different, and it touched my psyche. And then there was a quick withdrawal, and a woman or something close to it began to take shape. She glowed with a translucent, ethereal type light. She wore a gown that rippled like a cloud caught in a gentle wind. Her face seemed familiar to me, and I guess it makes sense that it would be familiar because she probably probed my mind and picked an image that I would probably associate with what an air elemental would look like. Uh, she certainly, though, appeared more like a dream to me than anything else. I said, "Welcome." I'll be honest, I was a little awed, and at first I was a little tongue tied, which is a little unusual for me. I usually can yak away, but I then thought, well, hey, let's just be polite here. I said, "Thank you for agreeing to this interview." She tilted her head slightly, which is something I probably would have expected her to do as well. It's interesting how this works. And then she said, "I have no need for thanks, mortal. I live between the breaths of the world, neither here nor there. But I have agreed to speak with you, for the winds speak through me." There was a very quiet elegance in her words, and I took a deep breath before continuing. I said, "Could you tell me what you are exactly? I've recently met air elementals in a hurricane, and you don't project their frantic energy. I've only heard stories about air elementals, but none seem to describe you precisely." She smiled, or at least I imagined it was a smile. I guess it was just kind of a shift in the air. I felt like a smiling energy, if that makes any sense. She said, "You met my young children in that storm. When elementals are young, they live and they thrive in storms. I am much older. I am the messenger of currents, the wanderer between realms. Where there is wind, I am. Where there is breath, I am. I carry words that are never spoken and thoughts that drift on the breeze." As I got those thoughts, I really tried to burn as close as a quote as I could into my mind, because that really seemed like, I don't know, it seemed a little bit like poetry to me. So I wanted to make sure I kind of kept that as accurate as I could. Well, I mean, I was captivated by her presence. It was unlike anything I've ever felt before. I said, I questioned, what is it like to be an air elemental? I guess, see, I always like getting reality from other people. In my life, I've enjoyed speaking with people who think differently than I do. I don't believe in safe spaces. I want to hear from people who don't agree with me. I want to hear what they think and why they think that, so that I can try to live through their own experience. It's just something I've always been fascinated by. So I'm always interested what it feels like to be something alien to what I am. So I wanted to know what it was like to be an air elemental. Her gaze seemed to just look beyond me. She said, "It is to be unbound, to move between the world's edges, to be part of everything, yet tied to nothing. I do not dwell in one place. I am the passing of time, the whisper of the world. One moment I dance on the mountaintops, and the next I slip through the cracks of cities. My existence is as fleeting as the wind itself." I considered that for a minute. I mean, the wind is everywhere. You just take it for granted. You can't see it, yet it's everywhere. So I said, "So you're everywhere and nowhere?" She said, "Yes, but nowhere is a construct. I am everywhere and beyond everything. The air is both a medium and a barrier, yet it carries all things: dreams, memories, forgotten hopes. I weave them into currents, allowing them to pass from one being to another." I felt some energy going down my spine there. I said, "You carry memories?" "Of course," she replied. "Each breeze holds the imprint of 1,000 lives. Every thought that has ever floated in the air, every word whispered in the night, every prayer carried on the wind, I carry them all. I am the keeper of forgotten things, the unseen witness to the lives of all who breathe." There was a silence after she finished that. I said, "What do you do with these memories? Do they affect you?" She said, "They do not affect me as they would you." She had a bit of amusement in her voice now. "I do not carry them in the same way. I simply observe. The memories come and go like gusts of wind. But I understand them. I understand that every memory has its place in the world, even if that place is fleeting." I asked, "Do you ever wish you could stay in one place like a human, to have a single fixed life?" The elemental paused. "The air is my home. I am not like you. My life is not made of years or moments, but of breaths and currents. I could not live as you do. I am the freedom of the wind, the boundless sky. My existence is not shaped by time or permanence. It is shaped by movement. To stay still would be a denial of what I am." I thought about that for a moment. I said, "So you're content with your existence?" "I am content because I do not know anything else," she answered. I thought I caught a glimpse of something that resembled sadness in her eyes, or maybe stillness before a storm. "But there are times when I envy you, mortal. You live with purpose. You create meaning, and in doing so, you find the weight of existence. The wind is ever changing, but your kind anchor yourselves to the world in ways I cannot. That is your gift." I was silent for a moment, thinking about those words, because as a human, we don't quite, at least I don't, quite think of my life and myself in that exact way. Or if I had to define what it is to be human, what is it? What do you do? It's interesting getting her an alien viewpoint of what we are. I said, "But you're not without purpose. You carry all those memories. You witness everything. In a way, you're a keeper of all things we forget, all the things that slip away." "Yes," she agreed. I carry what you leave behind, the forgotten moments, the unspoken words, but I am not a keeper in the way you think. I do not hold on to them. I release them, let them go to find their place in the world again. The air is not for holding, but for moving." That's something I think all humans could learn. We're so geared to holding on to our possessions, holding on to our realities. We're so reluctant to let these things slip between our fingers. We're just always holding on, instead of just allowing things to move in and out of our lives in a way that I guess we'd like to think the universe, if it's allowed to do its job, does naturally and for the good of all concerned. I said, "Then do you ever wish to be remembered? I mean, would you like to have your own memory, your own place?" She smiled again, although it certainly wasn't a human smile. It was kind of a feeling. That's why I say it. She says, "I do not need to be remembered. The wind does not need to be known. I am the breath of the world, transient and elusive. I am not forgotten. I am always becoming." With that, her form started to fade, and I could tell things were starting to end. She said, "The winds are calling, and I must go." I watched as she dissolved back into the wind currents. Her presence lingered for a bit, like someone who's left the room, but their perfume is still behind. But then with a breeze, it was gone, and I was left there alone, hovering in the night sky. I returned to my body, and I did my best to write down everything as it happened. And I think I've done a pretty good job. If you found this interesting, why don't you give me a like? If you have any questions, or is there anything else I should have asked, or do you have any requests of any other interviews that I might try to do? Be glad to have some more suggestions. At any rate, what I'd like you to do is just share this with other people who are of the same mind. You can subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.